Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day, whatever. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, welcome to Soul Empowerment. My name is David McLeod. I'm your life mastery coach. And this program is our monthly session at discussing topics which we believe are relevant to making our souls a bigger power in our own lives. And that's what we're here to do. We're going to have a really powerful conversation today. The title is How to Tell the Truth. Of course, that sounds maybe like a little bit of tongue in cheek because I think everybody knows how to tell the truth. But we have some different perspectives on this, and we're going to be sharing that as we proceed. But before I go any further, I'd like to give all of my co-hosts a chance to introduce themselves. And today, Scott, I'm going to start with you. So tell me who you are, where you are, what you do, and why.
Hi, everyone. Scott Holmes here. I live up in Boston, and I am an intuitive energy healer. What does that mean? It means we go wherever the energy takes us. Anytime we work with people, it's whatever is needed. And I deal with professional men and women to try and get them back on track, to find their journey, to get them back on their path. And I absolutely love the work, and I love being with these three beautiful people.
Well, thank you, Scott. And energy. That's wherever it takes us. And that's kind of what we do on these programs too. You know, energy has its own way of moving us, and we all, we start a conversation, and who knows, some great ideas will come up, and we'll just take it wherever it goes. So thank you for that, Scott. And next, I would like to call on Gail. Say hello, Gail. Who are you? What are you? Oh, no. Who are you? Where are you? What do you do? And why? There you go.
That just reminded me of a sixth grade teacher that I had who was always saying, "Who am I? Where am I? Why am I here?"
Right. Yeah.
So, hello, everybody. I'm Gail Nowak. I'm located in the greater Boston area. I am a communications and emotional wellness coach working with spirit-led wellness coaches and leaders, helping them create authentic, healthy business relationships without hiding or silencing themselves so they can communicate boldly, lead lovingly, and make the world a better place. And I use an energy first. Speaking of energy, I think all of us here are working with energy. Energy first, healing centered approach to lead my specific clients from hiding in plain sight to becoming a bold and gentle leader in the new earth paradigm. And I would say now is the time for those who have that calling to step up. We need this now more than ever. So if you want to talk with me more about that, you can find me over at my website, gailnowak.com. And I'm really excited about today's conversation because it's about truth, it's about authenticity, and we always have a great conversation that feels expansive. And no doubt this one will be that way too.
Yeah, beautiful, Gail. Thank you. Bold and calm leadership. Boy, we sure need some of that in the world today, don't we? And if there wasn't a better time to step up and start taking a lead in your own community, I can't imagine when a better time would be. So I hope everybody who watches this and who participates in our shows learns something, gains something, and builds some confidence to step more fully into who you really are, because that's what we're here for. So thank you, Gail. And next up, I would like to call upon Sarah Jane. Who are you? Where are you? What do you do? And why?
First of all, I want to say thank you to Gail for her little hint of an advert at today's conversation, which is coming later today. So thank you for that. I'm Sarah Jane. You can call me Sarah. I'm in the UK on the South Coast, and I work with energy as well. I work with lots of energy. Dragons, mythical beings, Reiki, sound, sort of light language. It seems to all be channeling and energy. And personally, I love it. And it helps so many people in so many different ways. So why do I do it? I do it because I love it. I do it because I feel that there are so many of us here at the moment. It's important for us to share our voice, our experiences, our learning and our wisdom from those experiences to support those of you that may be going through something similar, or sort of, even if you're not going through something similar, the feelings that what we've experienced have engendered in us, you resonate with those and you realize there are so many people out there who are here to help and support you on your journey. And to that end, I'm also in the process of leading a multi-author book called I Didn't Become Selfish, I Became Harder to Manipulate, which hopefully will actually have been released by the time we have our next program. Thank you, David.
Beautiful. Yeah. That's an exciting another compilation. I'm involved in this, and I think Scott is involved. And I have been involved in so many book compilations. It's just really a thrill to be able to write and share. And I think one of the things that I've learned as a result of doing these compilations is just how much my past history has impacted the way I've shown up in my life. And a lot of it has been kind of unconscious, you know. I went through a lot of my life choices without really thinking about it. And I suspect that a lot of people have done that. And this is one of the reasons that I do what I do. I believe that, you know, we all have a story. Unfortunately, many of us become our story and we kind of identify with it. And the truth is, we're not our story. We're just the creators of it and the experiencers of it. And we get a chance to, if we really look carefully and look deep inside, we can find out the truth of who we are and discover just those amazing, beautiful morsels that we hopefully can bring more generously into the world. And that's really what my work is all about. So I want to thank everybody who's been watching these programs. I've now reached, today I got 270 subscribers on my YouTube channel. And that's just been going up and up and up. And I've just been really excited. So I can't wait to break through 300. And that's probably, you know, going to be happening in a day or two, I hope. We'll see. Anyway, so if you are inclined, if you like the kind of content that we share, please subscribe, like, mark the notification button, do everything else that you have to do so that you get notified when we drop something else. So with all that said, our topic title, How to Tell the Truth. Well, I guess the one place to start is, what is the truth and who gets to decide? That seems like an obvious question. And so I'm just going to throw it out there and see who wants to pick it up and go first. Oh, Scott wants to go first today.
Oh, let's
Collaborations. I was just doing some work on my website and I realized that I have done 8 books plus Sarah. Working with Sarah's collaboration is number 9. And
that's awesome.
It's amazing. I didn't realize how much work I had done. And the truth, when I first started writing, it was all about what was. I had to tell my story. That was the truth. That was my truth. That was the truth that I held within me. That was the truth that I lived with. That's how I viewed myself. To me, that was the truth. And as I've gone through these collaborations over the past three years, it's amazing how just the evolution of me and what my truth really is. Because I keep stripping away all these old stories, and when I write it, it goes away and it kind of falls off. And I don't have to be that story anymore, and I can be something more. And with all the work that I know that all of you have done, as well as myself, in the travels, in the blogs, in the interviews, and everything, in the writing and everything you've done, it tends to strip away all of those things. You look at the dark side, right? You look at that shadow work. If for those who know what shadow work is and who work with it, that part of you that you drag along with you that you don't realize is always there. I took that trip to Peru this past year, and everything fell away, and it changed my perspective, changed my truth about who I was, and what I carried, and what my possibilities were. So when we talk about truth, It's all a matter of perspective, correct? 3 years ago, I am not the same person I am now, and my truth was much, much different. And in helping clients now, I can have a much better perspective. We say higher perspective or different. I just think of it as just a different perch in the tree to be able to allow people to see what they need to see in working with everyone. So what is the truth? We see things through our own eyes, but in communicating with people, it's the listening part, I find, that changes perspective and allows those things to come through and allow them to see what the truth is from their perspective. So for me, truth is about understanding of self, but also of compassion to be able to listen. That's not always easy when there's some hard feelings going along or some angry feelings coming through. Not always easy to hold your tongue, but I found that just throwing love at it, as we often use on here, is just throwing some love at it to be able to listen. And for me, that's when I hear the truth.
Yeah, and beautiful. Thank you. Gail, are you ready to say something?
I am. I'm so I'm feeling called to share an example to answer this question, because I feel like as Scott was talking, I was like, oh, wow, there's a lot in this recent experience that I think speaks to what is truth. So I've been collaborating with a colleague on a new workshop, a new offering, and we had to have an awkward conversation last week. And the truth of that was that she's collaborating with somebody else, and there's overlap between the promotional period. And the truth was, I was feeling like, what's up here? Like, I'm feeling like I'm on the back burner. We had an agreement. And part of me wanted to just run away and write it off and be like, forget it. But the truth that I knew in my heart was that, yes, that's a choice. And that's probably going to damage this relationship. And it's a relationship that I care about. And I had to hook into my adult self and show up and be honest about how I was feeling about things. And it actually, talk about the listening, it helped me see, okay, I am actually working with somebody who has the capacity to not only listen and hear, but be able to receive and honor how I was feeling and not get triggered and not get defensive, and to just say, yep, I hear that and I get that. And and I had to show up and say, here's where I'm at. This is either, like, this conversation for me is I'm in or I'm out. Like, this is go time here for me. And it evolved in such a way that I never would have expected. And there's all kinds of, what I call sourced experiences and magic and things unfolding that I never would have imagined or have generated from my mind now that we've had that conversation. Like, this work that we're doing together is expanding. Other people are getting involved. And it's really just flowing in a beautiful way. And so for me, truth is one part being able to be honest with yourself about any given moment, how you're feeling about any given moment, being able to express that openly and honestly and vulnerably, respectfully, and, being able to receive whatever comes. Because sometimes people are able to receive you in the way that I was received last week, and sometimes they're not. And then you kind of know the truth of where they're at, not necessarily, they, good, bad, or different. The truth of where they're able to meet you. And then there's the bigger truth of, like, the grand plan for everybody involved, right? And so that piece of truth from sort of your higher self, your soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, I feel like gets revealed sometimes in little pieces, little breadcrumbs. But when we're really being true and authentic with ourselves and with other people, that bigger truth comes to light, like the capital T truth of the situation. So it's so funny that collaboration is coming up in this conversation, and the listening and really hooking into, not hooking, I don't like that word, aligning with what's truly going on inside and aligning our actions with that.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Sarah, I'd like to hear your perspective.
Truth is uniquely ours to a certain degree because it depends on our experiences, how they have made us feel. And I just think about, sort of the meaning of words. And a classic between myself and my youngest sister, she adores the word service. Personally, I hate it. That's her truth. That's my truth. Because as a child, as an early teens, I was serving people their breakfast in the morning and their evening meal at my parents' hotel. I was then sort of serving people by doing newspaper rounds and delivering it to them. So to me, service is doing for others, not, sort of, and I'm not here to do anything for anyone. I am here to support people to do things for themselves, to learn for themselves, to grow for themselves, to be for themselves. Yes, I know I've worked also with adults and children with learning difficulties, and that again can be a slightly different. But again, I didn't find myself being there to do for them, but to support them. I'm thinking specifically of one lady, her condition, I can't remember what it was called. And I was told, oh, because of her condition, she can't do this, she can't do that, and she can't do the other. The things I got her to do that she supposedly couldn't do. Because I didn't have that thing in my head that said, oh, she's got that condition, she can't do that, I won't even let her try. So, and then sort of thinking about a client, a metamorphic technique session. And with metamorphic technique, we have to stay totally detached. We are not allowed to give thoughts and suggestions, etc. And this client talked her way through the whole session, and I couldn't say a word. I had to keep quiet. But at the end of it, she said, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. Because what she'd done was listen to herself to discover her truth and her steps forward. And so that session did what it was meant to in a very different way. Because during it, she just talked and listened to herself, and she allowed herself to answer herself.
Beautiful.
And that's what we should do, is we should listen, but also accept the fact that what is our truth and our understanding. And I get what my sister says, I get what everybody else says about the word service, but it's never going to be my understanding of the word because of my experiences. So it's about listening, it's about accepting that not everybody thinks and understands in the same way.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I notice that what you do is you provide services for people. You help them to achieve what they want to do. Perhaps it's an opportunity for you to start thinking of service with a different mindset. It's up to you. You don't have to do anything. Just a suggestion. But I want to talk about truth as well. For me, truth, and I like to think of truth with a capital T, as Gail suggested. For me, truth in that sense, absolute truth, whole truth, is immutable. It is all that is. There is nothing that cannot be contained within that universal allness of truth. And to get back to what Scott was saying about, you said, I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago. I have a different perspective on that. I think you are the same person. It's just that your awareness of yourself has changed. Your awareness has expanded. And so I think that while I think that truth itself is immutable and it's massive, it's way bigger than any of us can probably visualize in our limited capabilities as human beings. In the same way, when I think about myself, especially when I think of myself as a divine, magnificent, universal, spiritual being of light and love, connected through energy to all other life forms everywhere. And I realize that I am one with all that is. There is only oneness. So therefore, absolute truth and absolute oneness are one and the same thing. So I think of what we have been talking about here so far is how each of us sees truth, and we see little glimpses of truth. So what I think I'm going to do now is I'm going to reverse the question and say, what is it like when you tell a lie? I know I have told lies in my life. I would guess that you probably have too. What does it feel like when you do that? Because the only way you know you're lying is that there's an objective reality out there and you're going against it. How does that feel?
Oh, okay. I think everybody is told those lies, and they come in all different shades, right? White lies, little lies, spare feeling the lies. You know, all of those levels of kind of half truths, or shades of truth. That is so interesting. Long time ago, I stopped trying to. I'm a terrible poker player, and I'm a terrible liar, by the way. So I would always get caught by my mother when I was a teenager and growing up. So I instead of lying, I would just not. I would just not tell the story, because invariably I would trip myself up. Because I couldn't remember it. And as I was raising my children, and as I got into adulthood, it was, I know one story. And I stayed with that. And I would only, it didn't matter if the person in front of me didn't like it or didn't accept it or whatever else, but I only knew one story. So I kept that as my word. And I always saw it as my truth, because this is what happened as I saw it. This is what I know to be true. And I would only tell that. And I'm unfortunately, I didn't have a Machiavellian brain where I could do the twists and turns and all of the things. And I only had daughters, so Machiavelli was in our household daily, with all of their relationships. When my daughter's growing up, I could never follow it, so I'd always ask them, "Oh, by the way, what should I tell you? What should I tell and what should I not tell?" Because I don't know the nuances. Lies. It's interesting. I sit on it if that impulse comes to me to not tell the truth. I sit on it. I just let it go and see how it plays out. One of the things you brought up to me, David, for me was, I do hospice work, and I found that some of the greatest truths come out in people in their last days. And the greatest way that I have been able to honor that is to hold space and listen. And it's absolutely amazing what comes out. Sarah, your story was, in not saying a word, but everything came out of her, was you held the space for her to be able to do that. She felt comfortable with and that's what I hope to do for those people that I work with, And everybody in my life, I try to hold that space so that they feel comfortable, so that they can reveal themselves, reveal their truth to me and to the world, to be able to feel comfortable in that. And it's that comfort. And Sarah, I think that's the service
what
that I
I'm
have.
hearing you say, if I'm not mistaken, I really don't hear you talking about any of the experiences you've had of lying or how you felt about it. So I'm assuming that this is not a topic that you want to talk about, which is okay, perfectly okay. Well, then I'll just say it myself. I have lied in my life.
Oh, yeah.
And what I don't like about it and how I feel about it is it feels very disingenuous sometimes. I figure people can see right through me when I don't tell the truth. I think that I feel misaligned. I'll put it that way. I definitely have that high level of discomfort of not being in alignment with who I really am. And when I talk about lying, I'm not necessarily talking about a blatant lie. But let's face it, Sarah, you talked about being a people pleaser. I have gone through that in my life. What was I doing? I was appearing the way I believed other people wanted me to appear. I was denying my own truth, my own essence. And what is a denial in that sense? When I'm denying the truth, I'm basically lying. So a good part of the first 40 years of my life was a big lie. And I'll tell you, I hated it. I was miserable. So to me, the reason I brought this up, and I get it's an uncomfortable topic. Nobody wants to admit that they've lied. I get it. The reason I bring it up is because there is a feeling I get when I touch the truth. There's a feeling I get in my body. I know when it's truth. My body is just all resonating. When it's not truth, I get that, discordant and incoherent kind of energy flowing through my body. That's how I know. And that's the reason I brought it up. And what is a lie? Well, I think a lie is any statement or action or thought or word that is in some way withholding the truth. I don't have to say anything to be lying. If I'm choosing not to speak the truth, I am effectively creating a falsehood. And that doesn't feel right to me. And Gail, you talked about this yourself when you said you had to have that difficult conversation with your friend. I'm sure that there was a part of you that says, God damn it, I just don't want to do this. This is not comfortable. And yet you knew in your heart, I have to do this because otherwise I'm not honoring who I really am. And this is really what we're talking about here. And I think this is a vital, vital conversation. I'm going to shut up now.
I hear everything that you're saying, David, and I agree. For me, it's a constriction, like very clear distinction for me. I feel it very clearly in my body in that lying space. And yes, I've probably told millions of lies over my lifetime. And I know I feel it. I feel it in my body. I feel it in the energy. It's a drawing in. And truth, as scary as it is sometimes, is liberating, is expansive.
Yes.
Right? I am a truth teller in a toxic family dynamic. So I want to just give a little spin on what you said and bring a little love into the lie piece. I'm not making excuses for lying or anything else like that. And you talked about the people pleasing, some of these patterns, right? Sometimes lying is a survival pattern that we learn.
Yeah.
And having been a very young truth teller in a family and getting shut down by that, and then sort of lying by omission, by pretend, like, the adults in the room swept things under the rug. But I also went along with that. I didn't really have a choice, right? But being in a dynamic like that, it's very easy to sort of carry that with you and
Right.
normalize that and need to normalize that when you become an adult and you become the so-called adult in the room. So I want to, and I don't feel like you were making any judgments about lying at all, David, but I do want to sort of touch on that because sometimes we are lying to be manipulative, right? We are overt about it. Sometimes we are covert about it. And sometimes it's an unconscious or a subconscious thing that actually was a brilliant survival strategy. And we're now in a place in our life where leaning more into truth and leaning more into our authenticity is going to support us and serve us much better.
Exactly. And how many people in this life have been abused by people who were close to them, even their own parents, and chose not to say anything about it, chose even to explicitly and outwardly lie in order to protect these people who were supposed to be protecting them. There are millions upon millions of people who have done that. And I completely understand, and I agree with you 100%. The only healing energy we can do is to bring love to it. You cannot hate lies. That only makes them worse. You have to love everything if you want to heal it. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
David, you sort of took, I was thinking, right, the person I've lied to most is me.
There you go.
From the people pleaser. At the
Right.
end of the day, it was, it was thinking about everything, my 2 marriages, everything. And it was, I have so few memories of my, when I say early years, we're probably talking about the better part of 40 years, because I was such an unhappy child. That really progressed up into adulthood and the people pleaser. And I suppose I have no real idea of what it felt like other than the fact I didn't know who I was. I had no idea who I was. And it was that time that I got to actually say no more. That morning, I sat down with my second husband and said, the marriage is over. That was one of my first bits of, I'm not saying I wasn't honest, but there were so many lies because of the people pleasing. And to be able to sit there and be in my truth and my honesty when I said, we're done, which threw him, but it was just like, wow. And that being able to stand in the kitchen and have that awareness of, why are you worrying about what other people think about you? Because that was a total lie. I was telling myself all the time, people are thinking about me, they're being negative about me, I want them to be happy and I want them to like me. That I was lying to myself all the time with that. And that awareness of, why are you worrying about what they're thinking about you when they're not? So I can only come at this from almost the opposite perspective. How did I feel when actually I stopped lying to me and therefore was more honest and authentic with the people around me?
Right. That's beautiful. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. Yeah, this is not to make anybody wrong about lying. We've all done it. And I honestly, truly believe nowadays that there is no such thing as a good lie. There is a thing as a lie that served a purpose, but that to me doesn't make it good. If we if we could learn how to tell the truth in all circumstances to each other, right? If everybody could learn to do that, I honestly think this world would be a far better place. But anybody, now think, I brought up the subject of children being abused. What kind of person, what kind of energy do you have to have in the first place to think it's okay to abuse a child? You got to be lying to yourself on some level in that regard too. At some point we have to say, well, there's no excuse for doing it because you had it done to you when you were a kid. I'm sorry. That had to start somewhere. So somebody started that thing without having a predecessor, right? What kind of energy, what kind of belief do you have to have about yourself in order to think it's okay to abuse a child or anybody who you believe is weaker than you, that you can overpower them or something? What kind of mindset is that? I've never understood it because I haven't actually experienced it myself, even though I know that I have a hell of a temper, and I can unleash on people, and so I give them verbal abuse, but I've never physically abused anyone of any, in any way, shape, or form. Verbal, yeah, I've been pretty good at that. My ego mind really knows how to come up with some pretty juicy accusations. So I know that I have that within me. Could that perhaps be transitioned into a different form of abuse? Well, of course it could if I wasn't careful about it. So this is not about making anybody wrong. I think it's about raising awareness and helping us all to understand that the truth, you said it yourself, Gail, the truth liberates. The truth sets you free in more ways than one. And it could be that saying something truthful to somebody when you're coming from your heart might make that person uncomfortable. Well, actually, that's not true. It won't make that person uncomfortable, but that person may, in himself or herself, begin to feel uncomfortable as a result of what you've said. That's his or her problem, not yours. Now, on the other hand, you've heard of this thing about brutal honesty. I don't like brutal honesty. It's possible to be honest without being brutal. It's possible to be truthful without being hurtful. You can be compassionate at the same time that you're sharing truth with somebody. These are very, very possible things. And I know because I had to learn some of that the hard way. So, Scott, I see you've unmuted. Did you want to say something?
Yeah. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, David. You're right. It wasn't discomfort. It was more not thinking back far enough. Because, Gail, much like your family, there were so many things. We used to call it the elephant in the room, where all the adults were talking around it, and nobody would actually mention the elephant in the room. And I, being a truth teller, I have been the black sheep of my family for years on end. I've carried that badge and wear that pin
With
anywhere
honor.
I go with honor. And I would always bring things up, and they go, yeah, okay, and then go on to the next, and it would just be kind of no, we don't want to talk about that. So yes, I guess in so many ways I kind of lied in keeping the peace with my family. And growing up, I was taught not to talk about things. I was taught not to. I was look around things. You don't bring things up that are uncomfortable. And in the same way, as a teenager and then as a young man, I was in sales for years. And then I realized that in sales, it was only good when I was truthful. And I told that one story, and I didn't try to bend the truth, and I didn't try to manipulate. And it was that learning process, and that was the lying to myself. What was important? Was it getting that one sale, or was it just being true to who I was? And so, yes, it's been that evolution of taking the mask away, taking all those layers away, and in seeing who I was and who I truly was, and being authentic, am able to be at this point in my life where I don't feel I need to not tell the truth or fade the truth or anything else. That I am much more able to be very, very authentic with everybody that I come into contact with. And thank you. It really changed in the thought process, and thank you for the.
Great. And of course, I don't want us to be, diving into the whole let's admit how many lies we've told kind of thing. That's not my point. It was the reason I brought it up is because I know, just to get a sense of how do I feel when I'm not fully aligned with truth. I feel out of integrity. That's the only way I can describe it. And I don't like that feeling. And what's different now than it was maybe 30 or 25 or whatever years ago when I first started doing this deep personal growth work. Well, the difference is I had numbed myself out to all of the bullshit back then. I had gotten so used to the way things were, so used to going along to get along kind of thing. And just feeling that sense of deadness, that sense of misery in my soul. I just remember, I think it was about 3 years before I actually left my family. I had this awareness. The only reason I'm here, the only reason I stick around is because of those 3 kids. The only reason I'm still here is to provide for those 3 children that I really care and love a lot, And when I came to that realization, I thought, holy shit, am I really doing them any good by staying around when I've got all this negative energy and all this anger flowing through me? Man, I'll tell you, that took a lot of time and energy to figure out how to deal with it. Finally, I came to the conclusion my only answer was to leave. Now, maybe there was another answer and I just didn't see it, but that's what came to me. In retrospect, I'm glad that's what I did, because it gave me a chance to just be alone and deal with my own stuff, to heal my own wounds, and to reconnect to the truth of who I am so that I could reconnect to my children later in a more mature and loving way. So sometimes the truth is going to be painful, but it doesn't have to be brutal, and it doesn't have to be uncompassionate. Truth can be very forgiving once you just are willing to acknowledge it. So here we are. We have some sense of the difference between truth and falsehood. We know how we feel when we're in the presence of it. And one of the other things that I'm noticing as we're talking about this is that getting down to the truth, surprisingly, requires a lot of deep and courageous self-inquiry. You notice that? So I'm going to leave that there, and you guys can start talking about that.
Well, what was going through my head was a couple of times, and actually before I even started the journey I'm on now, I remember when my middle sister, she was with her fiance, but they were very much living separately, and they were talking about getting married. And so bearing in mind, she married 2 weeks before I did. So she was, and I was 22, so she was 20. And my mother dropped me at work, and she said to me, Sarah, they're talking about living together. And I just looked at her and I just said, well, it would give them a chance to get to really know each other. And if it didn't work, at least it wouldn't end in divorce, which of course she didn't like. They did get married and it did end in divorce, which was really, really sad. But they'd also been involved in a really nasty road accident. And they both ended up with my sister ended up with her jaw dislocated in both places and broken, practically every tooth in her head broken as well. Sort of, and he, yes, sorry, and he ended up with a fracture in his pelvis and a broken arm, and they didn't know his arm broken for 10 days, but he'd obviously had a whack on the head as well. So of course, I don't think that particularly helped the fact that they then went and got married and then things didn't work. So that was one instant where I was honest with an answer at a time where I wasn't going to say anything that might upset people. And I'm just trying to think what the other occasion was that went through my head. When I was married to my second husband, her youngest son and daughter-in-law were sort of not getting on at all. And she sort of said to me about, oh, no, they should stay together. They should stay together because of the child. And I said, yeah, but what's right for the child? Really, having parents around that are constantly arguing and unhappy? That's not a happy home for the child to be in. She didn't like that either. And they did eventually get divorced as well. So it's us coming from our heart, sharing what we feel is the best truth in our own understanding. And if people don't like what they hear, they're going to ignore you anyway.
As long as that's all they do, that's okay.
Yeah, but when you're a people pleaser, you really don't want people ignoring you. But it is, but I know what you mean. Actually, they're just not going to listen. And so I think, providing we are honest from our own perspective, we're within our own truth. And I'm going to go back to this thing I've said a number of times before. If somebody says something you don't like, you're uncomfortable with, you ask them, did you mean what I heard, not what I said? Because sometimes what's really important is a rephrase of what you said, because they understand words differently, like my reasoning with my understanding of the word service. Use different terminology that hopefully means exactly the same thing to you, but might actually mean more to them. And encourage them to, well, what did you hear? So you get a sense of, and please don't repeat my words, sort of, so that you get a sense of what they think they've heard. Because there's going to be truth in what they're saying, and there's truth in what you're saying. It's just that they haven't hit the same mark. So it's being open to all of that.
Yeah, really good point. And I just wanted to highlight something that you said that I think is really important. When you're sharing your truth, share it from your heart. If it's coming from your mind, it's probably been massaged and shifted and twisted a little bit, and it might be coming from ego. And therefore, even though it might still be true, it could be coming from a less than compassionate space. This is why it's really important to try and share from your heart as much as possible. Understanding that, what I have to say to you, when I want to share my truth with you, you may have a reaction, and I want to be okay with that reaction. So I think that's what I wanted to just highlight, because I think that's important. Gail, I think that I saw that you were about to say something, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're correct. So I think, this idea of courage, it's courage in multiple ways. It's courage. It's having the courage to speak the truth from your heart the first go around, and to hold fast to that and to continue to do it again and again and again, even in the face of no agreement, acceptance, reception, right? So I'm just thinking about, I keep going back to childhood, because I do think that we pick up these lessons in childhood. if you're a child who tells the truth, and I think this probably happens to every child at some point, right, in growing up, where they speak the truth and it upsets somebody, or they get ignored, or somehow they get blamed for the thing that they're speaking up about, right?
Mhm.
It inhibits you, right? And you think, oh, okay. You make that connection of, oh, when I speak my truth, something that I didn't want to happen happens, right? And so now you've got this distorted relationship with truth. And so it takes courage again to process that experience and continue to be steadfast with the truth, because you don't want to get hurt again, right? So it takes immense courage, in my opinion, and in my experience, to keep going, right? Again, back to that initial point that I made earlier, sometimes you have to hold on your truth, or you have to maybe not speak your truth as a way of protection. And the healing comes, I think, when you recognize not every situation is going to pan out in that way, and to have the courage and the bravery to try it again. Just keep trying, keep going, keep doing it, keep trying, and to do the healing, the inner work, in order to be able to keep trying and doing, but also to shift your energy so that you actually receive a different result as well. And then really using that as your evidence, right? Because our ego, talk about the ego, like we're always looking for the proof and the evidence, right? So now having those contrasting experiences of, oh, I share my truth, but nobody listens, or it makes people upset, or it gets me in trouble, right? Now I've got evidence of, oh, actually people really appreciate me when I'm sharing my truth, or it helps me get a different result, and really moving more into that space and looking for that evidence, right? Because that was there before, it just wasn't the first experience. And we don't want to get hurt again, especially when that's happening at a very tender time and age.
Right. You know what as you were speaking, I'm thinking most kids that I'm aware of tell the truth just naturally. It's
Yeah.
and I think all of us tend to favor that kind of energy. It's so much easier to tell the truth, right? When you the only time it becomes difficult is when you have somebody who reacts to your truth, as you say, with some kind of a negative energy that tends to shut you down. It gives you the message that your truth is not acceptable to me, and therefore I don't want to hear it. Well, what do you want to hear? Well, I want to hear anything that makes me happy. That's effectively what the message is to the child. And so the child will just start making stuff up until he finds something, or she finds something that pleases the adult that he or she wants love and attention from.
Right.
Yeah, we manipulate each other into these messes, and then we wonder why the world is such a mess. I'm sorry, Scott, you were going to say something.
Reminds me of every half hour comedy where it's all based on a lie, or trying to keep the truth from somebody, and in a half an hour they resolve it, and all the chaos that
Right.
ensues because the truth wasn't told to begin with.
Right.
So we started this hour with collaboration, and to me, collaboration is connection with other people, and in order to do that, you have to be on the same level energetically. You have to be in coherence. There has to be that, and in telling your truth and speaking the truth in the way that someone will receive it. There's a million ways. David, you've said it many times today, and that is, you can tell the truth using a 2x4 and a hammer, or you can tell the truth laying it out on a platter so that people can receive it. There are many, many ways. There is brutal, and then there is compassionate. And the real collaboration, the real connection truly is being able to explain the truth, be able to come in at the same level so that people can hear it, understand it, and accept it. And that for me is what truth is all about.
Yeah, I that's really nice. I like that. I like the idea of the 2x4 or the hammer and then the platter. I like that's a nice metaphor. Two different ways of delivering the same message, you know? Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Scott. And I think that's something that we can all learn, right? For example, one of the things that I learned in one of the powerful workshops that I took many workshops from the Human Awareness Institute, but I think I've shared with you before this idea of I have something I want to share with you, but you may not be ready to hear it from me. So the way I find is helpful is I can say to you something like, I have some feedback I'd like to share with you. Are you willing to hear it? Now, you can immediately go into reactive mode and say, oh shit, he's going to dump something on me now and I'm in big trouble and blah, 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 blah. So no, I'm not really ready for that. I said, fine, thank you, no problem. Can you tell me when I might be able to share this with you? Now I'm putting you back on the spot. I'm saying, I understand that you're not ready right now, but tell me, can I come back in 10 minutes? Can I come back in half an hour? Can I come back later on this evening? What works? In other words, I'm telling you, you're not going to get away with this. This is important for me to share with you, but I want to do it in a gentle and loving way when you are feeling in a good space to receive it. So the idea here is to just realize that we are human beings. We are loving beings. We share a lot of beautiful stuff with each other. And sometimes the things that we share might not be super comfortable, right? So if you get permission now to give your feedback, then this is the second part that's really important. It's all about me. Whatever I am sharing with you, that is about me. Okay? If I do have, like, I want to share something. Let's say who haven't I picked on for a while? Scott, I'm going to pick on you today. Scott, I have some feedback that I'd like to share with you. Are you open to hear it? And you, of course, say, yes, David, I'm more than delighted to hear anything you have to share with me. Yeah. And I might say something like, so here's what's going on for me, Scott. We had an agreement to meet for lunch at noon, and you didn't show up until 12:30. Here's what's going on for me. When I don't know where you are for that half-hour period, I start to worry. I start to have concern about you. I start making up a story that you don't care about me, that this is not important enough for you to be here on time. You know, I can tell you all kinds of stuff like that. But what I'm doing is I'm saying, this is what's going on for me. This is my story that I made up. And I have no idea. Maybe you were in an accident, or maybe something else happened that you just got sidetracked or whatever. I don't know. And so I'm just putting that out on the table. And I can then finish up by saying, look, I don't need you to do anything about this. I just wanted to share that from my heart. I don't want to hurt your feelings or anything. I just want to let you know how I was feeling as a result of that situation. Period. Now you can say, thank you for that feedback. And that could be the end of it.
Yep.
Or you could say, you know, you're right. I was late and I really should have paid more attention at the time. You could say whatever you want, whatever happens to be true for you. But do you see what happens? If I came at you and said, Scott, where the hell were you? You're half an hour late. Well, I mean, you're immediately on the defense.
Absolutely.
Right? So there's different ways of doing things. And we can all learn, I believe, to tell the truth lovingly and compassionately with just a modicum of practice. I notice we're getting up to the top of the hour. Sarah, I know that you have to leave right away. I want to give you a chance to close out with some final words. And before you go, but you're muted at the moment, so please unmute yourself.
How about a little light language? Let it touch our hearts and our souls, whatever it might be. Kirtoish tin tanakeish ti manaikaita. Teramaikaishi in to ochs tanakai his maita asi kiota. Shir noitai mikat ast on astenka I in tiamai storoniki tiama. She an not a kara osh nai ika mananta ai. Nit tunakoi panta e sheamana ke ita. Loranai kai peki at an to a ist nakaho nei. Timteaka she a et ta I shimia. Kointeaka nestia uche ke matata. Namaste.
Thank you. So, Gail, would you like to summarize your best thoughts for this topic? Oh, you have to unmute. I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go. Uh-oh. We are not hearing you now. So we'll wait for your connection to come back. Scott, would you like to do some closing words?
Hey, thank you, everybody out there who's listening to this. We have tried many times to bring truth in all of its forms when we sit together. And I want to say that truth is not always the easy part, but it always finds its way out. And it's usually the best path that I've found in how to live my life also.
Beautiful. Thank you, Scott.
Miss Gail.
Gail, you want to give it another try?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Actually, what feels true for me is I feel complete with what we shared here. I feel like this was a very impactful conversation. I know we have this phrase, the truth will set you free. Yeah. Oh, can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, keep going.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It's weird. I'm getting like weird feedback. So yeah, we talked about the truth being liberating and setting you free. And we've touched on a lot of things. I noticed that some folks hopped on a little bit later in the show. So please go back and watch the replay and just absorb and bask in this conversation around truth, because there's so much juicy nuggets in our conversation. Thank you, right, David. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for everyone who's tuning in live for being here.
Right. Yes. Thank you, everyone, for your beautiful shares today. And I just want to say thank you to people who came and joined us for the live presentation. Thank you for being here. I would like to remind you that the recordings of this and every other episode are on my YouTube channel and also on my website at yourlifemasterycoach.com. So please remember to give your soul permission to run your life rather than letting your ego mind do the work. I think you'll find yourself much happier and much more fulfilled if you give yourself permission to do that. So thank you very much again for being here. I wish you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. And I'll see you next time on Soul Empowerment. Bye-bye.